Well, good evening, everyone. Appreciate everyone that's able to come here tonight. And for those of you online, we appreciate you can take time out of your day to be here. So first of all, we'd like to introduce some of our guests. Kit Carson, Luis Reyes, and Chris Riley with Guzman Energy. So today we took every precaution we could with the pandemic and everything. So hopefully we got enough social distancing here and things go well. So this entire event is for you, our member owners. Everything we do is for you. And everything that we're in right now is very simple. East River is spending a lot of your money trying to muddy the waters, and we're here to set the record straight. We ask for one simple thing, a fair and equitable exit fee. And because of this ongoing litigation, we have limited what we can say, and that's why we have a couple of attorneys in the office here today. And we'll go over some of the rules here as you can focus your attention on either side of the screen here. So those who are attending online, if you have a question or a comment, there is a chat box that you can submit during this time. We'll have question and answers towards the end. If you're attending in person, if you would text your question or comment to 605-412-8925. Our litigation team will review those questions, see if they're appropriate, and then we'll answer those towards the end of the meeting. And before I turn this over to Chase, I would like to have the Dakota Energy Board of Directors stand up and be recognized. So if you guys would do that right now. This hasn't been easy for a lot of them. And I personally want to thank them for the time, the commitment, and the education or the dedication that they have for their member owners. You guys should be proud of your directors for much time as they put in this, and look out for you at every single board meeting. So Chase, I'll turn this over to you now.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming on behalf of myself and the board. I want you to look at the screen and look at these names on that screen. You know these people. We're your friends, we're your neighbors, we're even family. We're members of this co-op as well. How we got here. As I stated, we care about our members. That means we do everything we can for them to keep our power costs low and maintain reliability. Truth is, we are very much still in our due diligence phase. In doing that, we've seen a great deal that concerns us, and we believe that we are better and more affordable. There are better and more affordable and flexible options out there. As this started in 2014-15, when the board began discussions of ways to mitigate rates and provide more stability and for our member owners. In 2018, we learned that we are very little flexibility or local control due to our wholesale all requirements contract. We then respectfully asked East River to provide us with what would provide us what it would cost to consider other options. East River made it very clear that we were not going to get that number. That left us with no other option. So in November last year, we filed a lawsuit. It's not stated in this timeline, but it's very important to know that the entire decision all the way along has been driven by our board and our desire to do what is best. We began our due diligence, we requested a number, and not until much later did we reach out to Guzman, as well as many others. That's where we are today, waiting for our numbers so we can make a final decision in our best interest. We've had 12 rate increases in the last 15 years, more than doubling our rates for our member owners. It is interesting to point out, once we announced our lawsuit, after many years of sharp increases over the years, rates flatlined. Maybe that's just a coincidence, but rates are projected to go back up in the increasing years. In 2005, energy costs were 50% of Dakota Energy's total expenses. Now in 2020, those energy costs were 72% of Dakota Energy's total expense. We as a board have done a lot to cut administrative costs. For instance, when Chad was promoted to GM, he kept his previous responsibilities as well. No matter how much we tighten our belts, we're continuing to get squeezed. It's becoming more and more difficult to make investments in infrastructure and upgrade to maintain our reliability. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to get to talk to you guys tonight, and I'll turn it back to Chad now.
Despite the challenges that were brought through 2020, we couldn't be more proud of our employees at Dakota Energy. COVID didn't stop our team from giving back to our community, and we expected nothing less. We kept driving forward. We only shut our office down for about a month, but every one of our employees came to work, and we kept working throughout the whole entire pandemic. So what I'd like to show here on the screen is we do have our annual meeting tomorrow, and it's in Huron and Miller. It'll be the same format as last year. Registration starts at 11, and then it will end at 1 o'clock. So those of you who are here, hope to see you tomorrow. Get your bill credit and get your extension cord. I would like to point out a couple things as highlights from last year. Our line crew completed 33 service orders, or new services, and installed 25 miles of line. Our wiring department completed 600 wiring jobs. This is a record for them. So I really appreciate them reaching out to our membership, growing that department to what it is today, and they continue to bring in a lot more of those members to do work for. The office people inside have completed over 10,000 member inquiries. That's just absolutely phenomenal. And also, I would like to point out that our safety committee, along with SGREA, completed some safety videos. And I think this is a true testament to our employees wanting to get the word out about safety to our members. Because again, you own us. We respect everything you do, and we never take you for granted. So what they did is each department took a scene, and either if a grain cart runs into a power line or somebody digs into something, it kind of gives you an explanation of what to do, who to call, and what should happen. So I really commend our whole employee team for doing that. So on the two slides here on the side, it's going to be a little difficult to read, but I want to kind of go through a little bit of this. And I believe that any attempt that we say we have the highest rates in the area is simply not true. We are not comparing apples to apples here. Now, what you see here is called meters per mile of line. Dakota Energy is made up of a very large footprint, and we don't have a lot of members. So when that happens, our density is low. So on this slide, it shows density at 1.4. Now, in the paper, you've seen letters to the editor that Dakota Energy has, the highest rates in this area. So I just want to kind of show you over the next couple slides of why that is. Now, each co-op is completely different. Some have different long-term and short-term debt, which makes a huge difference. Other co-ops have a different depreciation schedule. Some have a power cost adjustment every month. Others have different tree management programs. We are very proactive with trees because we want our members to have good, reliable power. So we spend a little more money trimming trees. And then each cooperative has a different O&M budget. So when we sit here and we look at the Northern Electric, who has over 2.5 meters per mile of line compared to Dakota Energy's 1.4 meters per mile, they're able to spread those costs out even more. So that's why our rates are a little bit higher. Now on this next slide, I'd like to point out just some facility charges that are within our area. This is the the cost to get the poles, the wires, transformers, interest depreciation to your house or your farm. So as you can see, Dakota Energy is at about $52. Northern, they're at 55, and then Central's farm residential is at almost $60. So when you take those comparisons, we're not the highest. Our kilowatt hour charge might be a little bit higher, but once you combine both of those charges, which is typically in a residential rate, we're not too bad when you compare it to the miles or the meters per line. So then I'd like to talk a little bit about Basin's for-profit subsidiary, Dakota Gas. The truth is, we believe East River and Basin have a serious issue here. And again, all this stuff will be online here later on, so if you guys miss a slide or something, we'll get you one. But Dakota Gas, it operates a synfuels plant that manufactures natural gas from coal. This plant also produces fertilizer and other solvents, such as urea, anhydrous ammonia, DEF. But back in 2015, Basin Electric and DGC started losing millions of dollars every year. And that's what we're here for, is transmitting the truth, because I know there's a lot of co-ops out there that aren't even talking about this. We feel, as Dakota Energy and the board, this is a serious issue that needs to be addressed. So you may be asking, well, how bad is it? It's bad, and it's not getting any better anytime soon. So this slide shows from 2015 to 2029. The slide's not upside down. Those are all losses. From 2015, or the last 7 years, they've lost $700 million at Dakota Gas Placement Plant. And by the end of 2029, they're expected to lose more than $1 billion. $1 billion of your members' money that you'll never get back. So what caused all this? Well, huge construction overruns was the start of it. And then Basin has proven they cannot operate this plant for profit and forecast financials with any amount of certainty. And that is what's scary. So what's the plan moving forward? We continue to hear, be patient. We'll accelerate depreciation. We'll build up cash. That cash is your money. And also, supposedly the saving grace here is going to be building a reformer for that plant to buy us out of debt. So Dakota Energy, we feel that we are paying more than our fair share, by far. So in 2018, the top 9 employees from East River made more than $2.7 million. $2.7 million in salaries, compensation. And then you guys have all seen the newspaper ads out there, the Facebook ads. They've spent over $100,000 on 20+ ads. They have a website and then all the Facebook posts. And from the moment East River received our request for an exit cost, they start charging all the other member co-ops a legal defense fund. And I'm sure East River thinks that we don't understand or we're overstating their compensation. But this is all public information on the 990s. I encourage you to go out and check. Dakota Energy's on there. All the other co-ops are on there too. So before I turn this over to Lee, I would like to introduce David Wheeler, who is our new general counsel at Dakota Energy. And now I'll turn it over to our other attorney, Lee Schoenbeck. Thank you, Lee.
I'm local counsel in this litigation. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about it. But I don't know how many of you have ever been in a lawsuit, but I've been doing this stuff for over 3 decades, and it's easy to forget that it starts with people. And if you've been in a lawsuit, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, picture this. You're all on different boards, whether it's the local elevator board or whatever it is, and you raise your hand and you agree to serve, and you do it because you care, and you don't expect that you're going to find your life involved sitting here in these seats. Chaz was going to shake his watch off up here, sitting there in those seats, all because you wanted to step up and do your part to help your neighbors. That's what a real face of this lawsuit you need to understand are these people, they only are here because they care about you and they agreed to do a job that somebody in the community need to do, which is be on this board. So I want you to understand the lawsuit, that's a word people throw around, but it's people that are involved in this. And these people right here have been tasked with trying to figure out how to provide the cheapest and cleanest energy for their member owners that they can. That's their goal, to do it at the best price. So here's a little bit about the lawsuit. I scribbled some notes so I don't miss anything. And by the way, if you've never had a chance to speak to a group that you don't know with cameras in your lights or lights in your eyes, don't run for office. So they were forced to bring the suit. They tried to get a fair and equitable price for a buyout from East River, and East River refused. For over 2 years, East River refused to do that. And so now they had to file the lawsuit. We're now in what's called the discovery phase, which is where we'll try and get information from them to get at what is that fair and equitable buyout for this co-op to pay to get out. This was filed in state court. It was filed in Madison. In fact, the judge that would have handled it is Judge Shelton, who many of you probably know from here and here on. But that wasn't good enough. East River removed it to federal district court down in Sioux Falls. And then that wasn't good enough. Then when Basin Electric wanted in to team up with them on it, they accommodated that. They've expanded the field of fire every way they can. And all you got here are your local folks trying to do their best that they can for their co-ops. And right now, we're in the discovery phase of a lawsuit that ultimately will be tried in federal district court in Sioux Falls. And from our perspective, we just soon be heading there as fast as we can. And that so far hasn't been the attitude of the other side. So thank you.
Over to Chris and Louise.
Thanks, Chad, and thanks everybody for having us. Really happy to have the opportunity to come out and talk to all of you today. I'll talk, excuse me, sorry. Talk just for a couple minutes. Primarily, I'm looking forward to answering your questions, and I know Luis is as well. But before that, I wanted to talk, and really, I wanted to leave you all with 3 points, which I think are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. The first one, you know, it's been interesting for me to watch all of this and see everything that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in the press. We have the press here. There's a lot of stuff going on in the newspapers. There's a lot of stuff going on the radio. And 95% of that, 95% of the discussion has nothing to do with the actual question at hand. So the first point I would make is what we're seeing right now is a classic misdirection campaign, right? The folks at East River and their surrogates are working really, really hard and spending a lot of money to try to get all of you who are here and all of you who are listening to talk about anything other than the actual question that's at hand. You know, we just heard about the lawsuit. All of these questions, you know, who's Guzman? Where do I live? What's going on in Taos, New Mexico? They're all fine things to talk about if we want to talk about them, but none of them have anything to do with the actual question. You know, I was a naval officer for many years. I was in the military for many years. And as part of that, I got to know ships really well. And one of the things that I always thought was cool was ships are equipped with, I'm sure there are some veterans in here, ships are equipped with what's called countermeasures. And countermeasures, for those of you who know, some of these you can look up on YouTube. Countermeasures are systems that a ship has where if it detects an incoming threat, a missile, it will do a bunch of things to protect itself. And what it really does, it'll see the missile coming in, and it'll launch countermeasures. And what are countermeasures? Really three things. Literally around the ship 360, it'll put up a bunch of smoke. It'll put up literal smoke to try to confuse the optical sensor of the missile. It'll put up a lot of heat, just fireworks essentially. It'll launch a bunch of fireworks in the air that go off and make a lot of light and a lot of heat, and try to attract the thermal sensor. And then oddly, they shoot aluminum foil, these big rolls of essentially aluminum foil. And aluminum foil is meant to create a huge radar signal, right? If something's detecting radar, it'll create a huge signal. So anytime a ship detects anything coming inbound, you see this bloom of things around the ship: smoke, fire, aluminum, all around the ship. Why do they do that? They're trying to get the missile to focus on anything other than the ship, right? They're trying to get the missile to look over there, or look over there, or look over there, and look anywhere but the ship. They're trying to confuse it. Why does the Navy do that? Because it works. It's a pretty good system. And it's pretty cool when it's in the context of protecting a ship and national defense. But that exact thing is happening here. What you're seeing is a whole bunch of look over here, talk about that, in an effort to distract everybody from the actual issue at hand. Why distract everybody from the actual issue at hand? Because I think their view, I assume, is that if the people in this room and the people watching were to understand what is really a really narrow issue, what the actual issue is, that you would all see that their position is indefensible. Their refusal to give the people up here the information they need to make a decision is indefensible. There's no reason for it. And so rather than engage on that, and rather than have the conversation be about that, it's way easier to make the conversation about all of these other things, right? So that's number one. You're seeing a massive misdirection campaign. You're seeing their effort to get you to talk about all sorts of things that have nothing to do with the actual question. Number one. Number two, so what is the actual question, right? We've talked about it a little up here. It's actually really simple and really straightforward. And I've been struggling. I love analogies. And I was struggling to come up with the right analogy, and I couldn't, so I stole somebody's who's out here. But I'm gonna give it to you. We all have, sorry about that. We all have cell phones, or most of us have cell phones. And if you have a cell phone, you have a cell phone contract, and you'll see from time to time, say you're with AT&T. You'll see Sprint is offering whatever rate if you switch to Sprint, right? And it's some cheaper rate designed to get you to look at it. And maybe it's a good deal, maybe it's not a good deal, who knows, right? But if you're looking at that in your own home, what would you do? My guess is you would say, all right, if I were to switch to Sprint, here's what my bill would be and how much money I would save if I did that, right? But then you would realize, oh, I actually have a contract with AT&T right now, so I can't just switch. If I were to switch, I have to take care of my agreement with AT&T. And so you would probably go to your contract, or maybe you'd call AT&T, and you would say, hey, if I wanted to end my contract and switch to Sprint, what's my obligation to you? And in most cases, it's in your contract, or they would tell you it's $200, whatever the number is. And the way you would probably handle that is say, okay, I have to pay $200, and I will save this much money by doing it. And if the number was $200 and you did the analysis and you saw that switching to Sprint would only save you $200 or $150, you probably wouldn't do it, right? It wouldn't be worth it. You have to pay $200 to save $150, or even $200, not worth the hassle. But if you have to pay $200 and you're gonna save $400, might be worth it, right? So that's the best analogy that I can steal from somebody. And that's exactly what's happening here. You saw all of the things, all of the information that Chad and the board are faced with. Rates doubling in 15 years. Energy as a portion of the budget going from 50% to 72%. Of course that's gonna get people's attention. It should get their attention. That's literally their job. And so all that they are doing, and all that this is actually about, was, hey, these things are happening. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not right. I know that I can go access a cheaper price. I have an obligation to my previous contract that I'm going to honor because I don't want to leave others holding the bag. So will you please tell me what my obligation is to you so I can evaluate whether this is even worth looking at or not? And that's all they're asking for. So why is this indefensible? Because East River is refusing to even tell them what that number is. And that's what this entire fight is about. It's not about where I live or where Guzman Energy is. It's not about Luis or Taos. They haven't said that they're going to go do something else. All they've said is, hey, all of this stuff is going on. Our job is to find the best rate. Can you tell us what our obligation is so we can decide whether it's worth looking into more? And that's what this is all about. So number one, a lot of misdirection. We're talking about a whole lot of things that don't have to do with changing your cell phone and figuring out what your obligation is. The actual answer is really simple. The actual fight here is over a really simple question. Will you tell us what the number is so we can decide whether it's worth pursuing? It's really simple. And then number three, this shouldn't even be remotely controversial, at least this question, right? I can see if they get the number and decide it's worth pursuing, all of these other questions become relevant, right? If you realize that you can pay AT&T $200 and go save $400, then your next question would be, okay, I'm looking at Sprint, what's their coverage, what's their, all of their other stuff. And those are all valid questions to ask, but that's not even what they're doing. They're just trying to figure out what is the number so we can decide whether this is worth looking into more. So number three, it's beyond me, if you take away the misdirection, why this is even remotely controversial. They're literally just trying to gather information for all of you so they can decide whether this is worth looking into or not. And the last point on this, it shouldn't be controversial, is they're far from the only co-op doing this. This exploration of what's going on is happening all over the country. I'll introduce Luis in a second, who has gone through this. But I couldn't count on both hands the number of co-ops around the country that are engaged in this exact same exercise. Hey, can I figure out what my obligations are and what I could save so I can do the right thing for my community? And some will move forward and some will not. This is happening everywhere around the country. The only thing to me there's two things to me that are controversial. This is the only one that I'm aware of where the G&T is refusing to even tell them what their obligation is. There may be others, but as far as I know, in all the other cases, the fight is over what the number is, not whether or not they should even tell you one. And the second thing that's controversial to me is, why is everybody not doing this, right? Why are these guys in the firing line when every other co-op in the state who's in the same situation? To me, it's perfectly rational to be asking these basic questions. I'm gonna wrap up, but I want to turn it over to Luis. We were fortunate enough to partner with Luis 5 years ago now, I think, on the same thing. And so I think he can give a perspective of what the other side of this looks like. And all of the things that he's gone through. He has a lot of perspective. But, again, from my perspective, what I want to leave you with, misdirection. 90% of what's going on out there, what you're reading in the paper, what you're hearing on the radio, has nothing to do with this central question. Hey, if we were to leave, what do we owe you? And then we can decide whether to look at it more. It's really that simple. Misdirection. The actual question is really straightforward. How much do we owe you if we go, so we can decide how to move on? And number three, this should not be controversial. In fact, if I were sitting in your shoes, this is exactly what I would expect them to be doing. And the fact that co-ops all around the country are looking at this exact same thing tells you that this is something to do. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm looking forward to taking more questions. I'm sure there are plenty, but let me turn it over to Luis.
Thank you, Chris, and good evening. First, want to thank the Dakota Energy Board and the members for giving you some time with me tonight so I can share Kit Carson's story. My name is Luis Reyes. I'm the CEO of Kit Carson Electric Cooperative in Taos, New Mexico. Basically the same type of structure that Dakota Energy is. As many of you know, there's probably over 800 distribution co-ops in the United States that serve all the rural parts of the country. You know, I've been with Kit Carson Electric 37 years. And I've been the CEO almost 29 years. And during that time, this is the third power supplier we've had. One of the main issues that our board really looked at is always trying to get the best or the cheapest cost of power to our members. And when I go around speaking to other co-op boards, members, it's important that the members get engaged in their power supply, because you're the one that ends up paying the bill. You have a voice to your board to get the best power supply that you're entitled to. The things that I've heard today during this presentation are basically the same things that Kit Carson went through. When I started my career at Kit Carson, and I'm from Taos, so I'm a local that was fortunate enough to work at the co-op, work my way up to the very top, and I'm very passionate about helping rural folks survive in this time where rural people our kids are leaving rural areas to go to urban areas. When I started, we were with Plains Electric. It was a generation transmission co-op in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And things got tough for them, and there was a decision made by the state of New Mexico, the co-ops who were with Plains, that maybe we should merge or be bought by someone else. We went through a process, and at the end of the day, in 2000, Kit Carson became a member of Tri-State Generation Transmission Co-op in Denver, Colorado. So when we moved from an Albuquerque-based company, which was home state, to Denver, nothing changed. The reliability stayed the same. We got the power. On one day, we were with Plains. The next day, we were with Tri-State out of Denver. The power flowed the same way. In 2000 to 2014, we had 12 rate increases in 14 years. Our rates doubled in 14 years. And we would talk to our members quite a bit. And our concern is electricity going to be affordable for our people? In north central New Mexico, we have a lot of economies. We're a tourist economy, outdoor recreation. We're in the mountains, so we have a lot of ski areas. We serve 2 tribes. We have a lot of low-income folks. We have a big ag sector in the northern part of our system, and a lot of ranching. So not too much different than this area, except we're at 7,000 feet. So the board made a decision that we need to change things. As Chad mentioned, every co-op that I know of is always looking at ways to cut your expenses. And the last thing you want to do is start cutting employees, but you look at tightening the ship to make sure that the members get the best cost of power and reliable cost of power. But at a certain point, there's not too much you can cut anymore, because you still have the obligation to serve. So at that point, our board decided our power costs. Our power costs were 75% of our entire bill. So for every dollar that you would pay Kit Carson, 75 cents went to our power supplier, 25 cents stayed locally. Now that's hard to operate a system with 25 cents and you have 3,000 miles of line. So we approached our power supplier and says, you know, you have to do something. So we asked them to cut expenses. You know, initially, Kit Carson did not want to exit. We wanted them to do their job. We wanted them to cut expenses, look at be more efficient from a business standpoint. Ladies and gentlemen, for a couple of years, I sat on Tri-State's board of directors, and we would talk about Dakota Gas and the losses that they continue to have. So even in 2003 and 4, when I sat on the board, they were losing money. But the Generation Transmission Co-op did nothing about it. In fact, they got bigger. Their salaries got higher. They got more employees. So finally, we just asked, we want an exit. We want to know what it's going to take to exit. And as Chris mentioned, that's the proper way to do business. First thing is our board decided, do we want to leave? Do we want to at least look at opportunities outside of the G&T structure? And it was unanimous that we needed to do that if we wanted to keep electricity affordable for our members. Then we asked for that number. And again, as you've heard from Chad, as you've heard from Chris, getting the number just gives us a starting point to determine, is there opportunities? It doesn't bind either the distribution co-op or the generation co-op to anything other than we have to see if this number works for us to be affordable. So we finally got the number from Tri-State. Our board went out to RFP to see if there's other power suppliers who were even interested. So that's the next step. At that point, maybe no one was interested in serving rural co-ops, right? Because we have a small density. You know, we don't have a lot of people per mile of line. We have seasonal loads. They're not 24/7 and 365. It's hard to serve rural areas. At the end of the day, it's surprising. We got about 15 bids for power. And you know what? Half of those bids for power were cheaper than our power supplier was currently supplying. So we went to the next step of then whittling that down to 4. And the board interviewed the 4 to determine which was the best for us long-term. I think the other thing that's not mentioned enough is the contracts that the G&T asked us to sign are very long contracts, right? When we were with Tri-State, it was a contract that expired in 2040, and they wanted us to go to 2050. I always wonder, and I ask my members when I would talk to them about this transaction, do we think we're going to still be selling electricity or doing business like we are today, and this is 2014, in 2050? Because if we're not, then we shouldn't sign contracts that long. So the other thing we wanted, or our board wanted, and our members wanted, was shorter contracts to give us more flexibility to be able to always address the needs of our membership. So that was another condition. So at the end of the day, we chose Guzman Energy. And we went through a long process, and we faced the same questions and issues that you're facing today. Are they reliable? Right? Are they reliable? Will the lights stay on? We've been with them 5 years. There have been no power outages as a result of Guzman being our power supplier. Today, we still have contracts with Tri-State. So we still have a relationship with our former G&T. They have to maintain the power lines. How many of you guys heard about what happened in Texas? They're our neighbor in New Mexico, where with the natural gas shutting down, basically shut down the state of Texas. We had co-ops in New Mexico that get their power from Texas that had bills for that month, let's say generally paying about $1 million, paying $5 million more just for that 1 week of cold weather in Texas. For Kit Carson, first we had no outages. There was not a power problem. In fact, if you hadn't turned on the TV, you wouldn't have known that there was an issue in Texas causing a power issue across the Southwest. The second thing I wanted to spell is it didn't cost us a penny. When we got our bill now in March for the February, it was the same as if it was last February. So again, I wanted to spell these issues about reliability, because that probably is more paramount to our members, is making sure the lights are on. You know, for those of you who don't know where Taos is in the area in north central New Mexico, you know, we sit at 7,000 feet. We sit at the base of the Rockies. We have 4 ski areas, so it gets very cold. We have areas in our system with the wind blowing. You have wind chills of 40 degrees below zero. And so having electric heat, having the electricity on is paramount. So we got through that. And then the one thing that kind of helped us get over this hump of, you know, them being out of state and are they reliable is, again, the price. So we signed a 10-year contract with Guzman, which expires in 2026. We're in our 5th year. We decided that exit fee, that number that our board decided to get and we got, we were going to pay it off in six years. We had a board that basically says you need to pay your debt. So we'll pay that off now in next July. And so from Kit Carson's perspective, with this transaction, we will have no generation transmission debt. So we won't have any debt tied to the power supply. Our cost of power is going to go back from the 75% down to 50%, which means now the co-op has the ability to either stabilize rates, lower rates, or put more money back into the plants. During that time, once we finish paying the exit fee, the next 4 years, the savings to Kit Carson will be $50 to $70 million. And the board has already decided that's going to flow back to the members of Kit Carson. And so I just wanted to share the story that this has worked. And in this 5 years, we have seen more presence of Guzman in our community than we had of Tri-State before. During the Tri-State years, and also we were a Class D member of Basin. I'll give you an example, and we support a lot of youth programs, scholarships, county fairs, those type of activities. We would get a scholarship from Tri-State and a $500 scholarship from Basin and zero for the 3 county fairs that we have for our kids. Guzman has been our power supplier. Every year we get 21 $1,000 scholarships for our kids. They participate in every county fair and every local activity that the board wants them to participate. So when we talk about how important is local to us, I think it's very important, but I think it's more important that they participate in local events. And that's really hard to manage when it's our kids that we're talking about. Those are the things that aren't talked about, that the G&Ts who generally have this money really don't participate or contribute. The other thing is it's given the power supply back to the members. You know, for most of you people out there, you know, there's some that probably remember when power came to the farm and counted on the co-op. The new generation doesn't remember that. And I think it's important that we instill the values of the cooperative model, that it's driven by the members and owned by the members. And that's the one thing that this transaction with Guzman has given Kit Carson, is the members now have to say. As Chad said, his annual meeting is tomorrow. Every annual meeting, we would talk about power supply. We would talk about their bills. We would listen to what is it they want. And so, if anything, just want to leave you that you're not alone. As Chris said, there are co-ops across the country looking at this type of transaction, whether it's to shorten their contract, whether it's not to extend their contract, whether it's to find another power supplier that has a model for them. But they are not the only ones doing this. In probably every region of the country, you have co-ops, co-op board members, co-op managers, co-op members wanting a better deal. And so I'll close with that. I will be here to answer questions, but it worked for Kit Carson. And again, remember, it's a process, and iterate with both Chad and Chris said, is no decisions have been made. And they can't be made until they get that exit fee. And getting that exit fee is important. At the end of the day, the board may get that exit fee and say, you know, there's just no way we can afford that, and let's move forward. But I think they're at least afforded the respect and opportunity to get that number. Seeing, again, is, you know, the owner of East River. You know, how many times, if you're an owner, you should be entitled to that information. And so I think that's the other thing that we think is missing in the G&T model. It's kind of the tail wagging the dog. The G&Ts were formed by the distribution co-ops, and now the G&Ts are telling the distribution co-ops what to do. And I think that has to stop. And in our model, we made it work. Our members are getting what they want. When we pay the exit, we'll have the cheapest wholesale rates in the state. The retail rates, you know, that's goes up and down depending on our industries. But to be able to have the cheapest wholesale rates in the state because of this transaction has been a great benefit to our members. So thank you very much for your time, and happy to entertain any questions at the proper time. Thank you.
So we'd like to have some closing remarks from Vice President Todd Bashong, please.
First of all, thanks for everybody to come, and this is your co-op. This is your time that you decide to spend with us, and we appreciate it. I'm batting cleanup, and I've done nothing but strike out my whole life, so I don't know how that happened. But before I get started, it would be an injustice not to mention about our employee group. Your cooperative, Dakota Energy, has the best employees in the state, some of which are here tonight. So you guys are awesome, and the board never takes for granted what you do. So my message is simple. Find your voice or lose your freedoms. Every day in local, state, and national stages, we are losing our freedoms because we have lost our voice. Every day. Dakota Energy has finally found our voice, and we are fighting to bring the energy and operational freedoms to your local cooperative. Find your voice and help your locally owned and managed cooperative. I am the 5th generation to farm the land of my family homesteaded. My seat on this board has never been outside of my family. We have served since the conception of REA. My father was inducted into the Cooperative Hall of Fame. What I do today is not meant to diminish or destroy that cooperative legacy. It is meant to build upon it and make it better. Dramatic change is coming to our industry. The only thing that matters is how we react to it. If the cooperative system refuses to service our customers in a fair and equitable manner, someone is more than willing to step in and service that customer for us. 10 years, almost to the day, I resigned from what is now AgTegra Cooperative to pursue a shuttle loader for my community because the market signals were right. Billions of dollars of investment capital were chasing grain origination projects, just as it is today. $1 billion chasing electricity in today's market. I wrote a prospectus, I did a grain origination study, found a partner, and sold the project to ADM. I then received phone calls, letters, confrontation on streets from people wanting to know why I wanted to hurt the cooperative business model by bringing a multinational grain company into the community. Now today, some of those same people are saying the same things about Dakota Energy's fight for energy freedom. My shuttle loader project was over $40 million in capital investment for my community, and millions of dollars are being saved and retained in the community. And guess what? AgTegra, which I am a proud member to be of, I do 100% of my crop input business with AgTegra. AgTegra is a stronger and a more customer-focused cooperative today than they were as a monopoly. As they were as a monopoly cooperative without any competition. That is what competition does. It makes you better, it makes you stronger. The consumer always wins with increased competition and always suffers under monopolies, even if that monopoly is a cooperative. An energy contract out to the year 2075 is not even realistic. How many producers in the room are willing to contract the commodities they raise for less than market price for the next 50 years? Basically your whole life. What will the energy market even look like in 50 years? A contract this long is ludicrous. Basin Electric buys around 40% of their power, contracted and spot, off the free market every month, and then resells it to us. Basin Electric does exactly what Dakota wants to do with Guzman Energy. Guzman Energy is an out-of-state, for-profit wholesale power provider. Basin Electric is an out-of-state for-profit cooperative. The main difference is business structure. One is privately owned and one is a cooperative. They both buy power from the free market. Doesn't it make sense that behavior, actions, and character determines the worth of a company and dictates who you want to do business with? Not corporate structure. The unspoken words of reality. Today, as a society, we struggle with the unspoken words of reality. Reality can be hard to cope with, but not acknowledging it's present doesn't solve anything, doesn't make it go away. The reality for the cooperative system today is the majority of consumers don't care where their electricity comes from. The consumer wants a fair price and reliability. The consumer today is 2 or 3 generations away from the fight to bring electricity to the rural areas. They lack the sense of ownership and have forgotten the struggle to serve the rural areas. It saddens me to listen to the cynicism and see the blank stares of people today. Money and power have silenced voices and have made people feel powerless. The name calling and cancer culture has people looking at their shoes instead of their neighbor's eyes in pleasant and meaningful dialogue and conversation. It doesn't have to be like this. Find your voice. Dakota Energy has found our voice, and we will not allow it to be silenced by money and power. To my Basin and East River friends listening tonight, I want you to know the resolve of Dakota Energy to get a fair and equitable exit number is chiseled in stone. We will not be bullied by money or power. Let us stop with the wasteful spending of our consumers' money, your money, on media ads, and let us stop the destructive Facebook arguments that accomplish nothing. No attitudes or minds are ever changed by media ads or social media. It is only the breeding ground of divisiveness and hate. What Dakota Energy is attempting to do is bold. It is aggressive, and it is exactly what our forefathers did when they established the rural electric system. A 70-year-old business model that will not adapt to changing times will become extinct. Look at Sears, Kodak, Polaroid. The list is endless. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not to where it has been. A quote by Wayne Gretzky. I honestly believe in my heart in the next 10 years, there will be a technology disruption in the electrical industry. What Dakota Energy is doing today is positioning ourselves to take advantage of future technologies. Forget about today, forget about tomorrow, forget about next year. Look to the future, just like our ancestors and forebears were looking to the future to get electric power to the rural areas. Find your voice, support your local cooperative, and help us skate to where the puck is going to be. Thank you to everyone who participated in the information meeting of their locally owned cooperative, and I hope you all have a safe and successful spring. Thank you.
So before we get into the question and answers, I ask you to direct yourselves to the side screens again. For those of you who are online, if you would submit your question or comment in the chat box. For those of you who are here in person, if you would text that phone number 605-412-8925. So the lines are open now. Submit your questions. And in the meantime, we did get some pre-questions filter in through today. We would like to go through some of those. And once we finish with these, hopefully we'll have some more on there.
Now you can't see the questions on the screen very well, but I will be reading all the questions and then we'll direct them to a member of the team on stage to answer. So the first question that came in online was, Where will Guzman Energy's power come from? And I'm going to go with Chris for this one.
I'm happy to answer it. Thanks for the question, whoever submitted it. As I answer it, please remember the ship and the countermeasures. This is not the question that anybody's asking right now. This is cart before the horse. The issue that we're focusing on today is, will East River give Dakota Energy a number so they can decide whether this is something even worth pursuing? And so where our power comes from is so far down the road. Nonetheless, I'm happy to answer the questions. Power supply can be somewhat difficult. It can be a somewhat complicated structure. A lot of the misdirection is relying on you not understanding how it works. They know how it works. They've been doing this for 80 years. Particularly here in SPP, in the Dakota Territory, you're part of what's called the Southwest Power Pool. It is an integrated electricity market. The power, the system where the electrons come from are managed by the Southwest Power Pool on the transmission lines that are owned by others. It is a market. People go in and purchase energy and sell energy every day on the market, and the market dictates which plants run and don't run. That's exactly how Basin Electric does it. East River, in fact, has no generation of their own. All of their generation comes from Basin Electric and the Southwest Power Pool. Guzman Energy, if Guzman Energy were to come in, we would do it exactly the same way as everybody else. This isn't a free-for-all where you get to come in and decide how you're going to serve power to people. There are federal standards, there are reliability standards, there are state standards, and guess what? We're subject to all of the same laws and standards that East River is and Basin Electric is, and anybody, if it wasn't Guzman, insert some other name. All of us are subject to the same power. So the power is managed by the Southwest Power Pool in this system. If we were to be selected, and if Dakota were to move forward with a new power supplier, we'd come in the same way as anybody else, build out a combination of assets, what makes the most sense in the market. We have to buy the same capacity obligations that anybody else has to buy. Capacity is essentially the ability to produce energy as needed. And then you have the energy itself, which is the electron. So the answer is our power would come from the same place that it comes from now, using the same system, subject to the same standards, probably a combination of wind and solar, some of the coal that's out there, and some of the natural gas that's out there. And it would be transmitted on the same transmission lines that it's transmitted on right now, that's owned by the same people that own it right now. And so, you know, I talk about misdirection. There's different flavors of misdirection. To me, fear-mongering is the worst form of misdirection. You know, these ideas of where does the power come from? What if there's a storm? How do we know if the lights will stay on? They know the answer to this. They know that we're subject to the same standards as them. But they're relying on you not knowing that. And so it's easy to raise these questions and try to scare you. But the fact is, we have to do it the same way everybody else would have to do it.
All right, the next question is, does Guzman Energy own any generation in the market to protect against volatility? And that question is again for you, Chris.
But I'm going to keep hammering the same caveat. Happy to answer it. Perfectly fine talking about it. Has nothing to do with the question that's being asked right now. The answer is yes. Guzman Energy has resources. In fact, right now we're contracting for nearly 0.5 gig, 500 megawatts of solar and wind assets. We have the same ability to come in and purchase assets and power plants as anybody else. We do own them. We do offtake them. Again, East River does not own any generation assets. They get all of their power through Basin Electric. They own transmission lines, but we do own assets. And again, whether we did or not, we have to serve power subject to the same regulatory and reliability standards as everybody else around the country. But the short answer to the question is yes.
What would have happened to Dakota Energy had we been completely exposed to the market during the February energy emergency that saw high spot market prices? Louise, will direct this one to you.
Well, well, not sure I'm in a position to answer that one because you know, Dakota operates in the SPP, and the SPP would be, as Chris said, be delivering the power. And as I heard earlier, I'm not sure if there's a fuel adjustment clause where they could pass that on without board action. You know, for Kit Carson, if the same situation happened in New Mexico, we have a fixed price contract with Guzman. So the price of power is X. They can't charge us any more than that. It changes annually. So the best way to insulate against those type of events are actually to write a contract that foresees those type of events. And in my presentation, February outage in Texas, Guzman first delivered the power, and it was cold in Taos. You know, we're a winter peaker, so that's when we use most electricity. We weren't deficient, we didn't have an outage, and when we got the March bill, it was not a penny higher than the contract. So I think Dakota Energy is in that same position, that they negotiate a contract that insulates them type of events. And that happened to us, so I can actually, that event did not recall there was that filed bankruptcy. They had a $1.2 billion power bill. They filed bankruptcy and kicked kind of the equivalent of a Dakota, didn't pay a penny more, and we're fine. So I don't think that really was an issue. That was not an issue for Kit Carson, the way our contract was structured.
I'll add just a little. First, misdirection, fear mongering, right? What happens if, what would have happened, you know? The answer is nothing. We enter into fixed price contracts. We have no ability, even if I felt like charging Luis more for the storm, I couldn't even if I wanted to. We give them a fixed price. It is our job to deliver that price. I have no ability to change that price. Doesn't matter if it's hot, doesn't matter if it's cold, that's on me, not on them. So, you know, we've gone through two major events in the last really 6 months. Last year, I don't know if you guys recall, California was a mess. It's been overshadowed by the stuff in Texas, but there was a pretty big energy event in California, but hit all of the West. During that time, we served every one of our loads with 0 disruptions, and we changed the price on exactly 0 of them by $0. Most recently, in February, another major event with the weather in the West. We served all of our loads without any disruption. The lights didn't so much as flicker, and they paid $0 on top of what they're contractually obligated to pay us, and I couldn't charge them more if I wanted to. So again, happy to talk about these things. This is misdirection. This is fear mongering. It has nothing to do with what is the proper number for East River to give Dakota, so they can decide whether there's anything to talk about here.
All right, Chad, the next one is for you. Will my household benefit from the rates? Please give me numbers on how much and when.
Well, that is an excellent question, and I think, like these two just said, we first need to find out what that fair, equitable number is first, and then you can start to evaluate if there is savings or if there is not.
All right, the next question is also for you, Chad, and that is, are there plans to utilize electricity from the new generator plant for NWE?
Well, it is a beautiful plant. I think we may have a representative from Northwestern here tonight. I don't know. Again, we go back to, we need that exit number. And then maybe that's a possibility. We sit down with them and see, you know, maybe they have some excess generation they need to get on the market. That could be a possibility for Dakota Energy members.
Question for you. This one goes to Louise. Has anyone calculated the cost of a storm job or infrastructure repair once you split from cooperatives that work together? Examples, comps from storms in the last 2 decades would work.
So, can you hear me? So with our Going from Tri-State to Guzman did change our relationship with other co-ops. We still have hazard sharing agreements with other co-ops, our neighboring co-ops. If there's a storm, they assist us or we assist them. I don't specifically know what those are built into a contract. Am I good? So, but it hasn't changed. In fact, we just finished our legislative session in New Mexico, and we work with co-ops on legislation that helps us, and those that hurt us, we fight against. Uh, we have contractors in our area that for years, even before when we were tri-state, we use contractors to help us during outages because they're local. If I have to get a crew from a neighboring co-op that has to travel 60 miles, or I call a contractor who are generally retired or ex-linemen of the co-op who started their own business, 5 minutes and they're on the job and they know the system. So again, that has never been an issue. In fact, it's again given us more opportunities during storms to hire local contractors to help us fix our system.
Chad, the next question is for you. Will Dakota Energy have representation on Guzman Energy's board of directors? Will they have the same voting rights?
Again, we need that exit number first before we can evaluate anything. I mean, I wish I could give you more, but until we get that, there's nothing even to evaluate or talk about.
To answer that, again, as I mentioned, I was on the Tri-State board, and the first thing is if you're in the minority, you're in the minority. It doesn't matter if you get a vote, but you're outvoted, especially on issues like this. As Chris mentioned, we have a contract. Now we have a contract that's fixed for 10 years. We meet periodically to go over the terms of the contract, conditions. They're real open, but there's really nothing to vote on to be on their board because we have a contract that we expect them to honor. I can also say that during the first 5 years, issues have come up that Kit Carson has wanted some addendums to the contract. We've asked for 4. We've been granted 4. They weren't contentious. They weren't drawn out. There had to be a win-win. I mean, it has to be good for Guzman also. But we have 4 contracts. We're currently renegotiating an extension of the contract. So I do think that based on the relationship, based on the goals that our board set, as I mentioned, how we negotiated early on, I think we have a bigger voice now because I don't have to worry if the other co-ops are going to vote for me or against me. I'm now dealing on behalf of my members only, which is really my job and Chad's job as CEOs is to take care of the members, not really take care of the other co-ops members. And so I think the relationship actually is a much stronger relationship and has made us more nimble to address some of these new energy issues, at least happening in northern New Mexico. We have a lot of people who want renewable energy. That may or may not be big in this area, but in our area, it's huge. And we've been able to work with Guzman to enable us to get what our members want. And they're happy about it, so that makes our board happy.
All right, Chad, the next question is for you. Will the membership get a chance to vote on whether the buyout number of our contract, if the lawsuit is successful in receiving a buyout number from East River?
Again, I have to refer back to each one of my comments earlier. If there's no chance or the buyout number is too great, then the board needs to make that decision. If it's equitable and fair, the board still needs to make that decision to see where we fit our analysis in on the cooperative financial structure. So we really need that number first.
Another one for you, Chad. Can the membership get a copy of the budget that was decided with East River?
You said copy of the budget, is that correct? I guess I'm not sure what the copy of the budget is, but maybe they're talking about the contract until 2075. I guess we would have to follow up with that individual.
This question is for Lee. Why are there questions that can't be answered tonight, or why all the caution?
I was kind of liking when you were asking everybody else. But the answer is because of the litigation. There are some things that are subject to privilege. In this instance, my dear friend Bob Saar is sitting right there from East River, who is their legal counsel and on the other side of the lawsuit, and I'm sure he'd like to look in our files. And because of that ongoing lack of sharing information, like for example, a buyout price, we can't disclose things that would get us crossways with litigation.
All right, Chase, this one's for you. Why has the board been in discussions with Guzman if Dakota is still in the due diligence phase?
I guess when we were in the due diligence stage, we decided to go through this. We needed to look for a partner in the end process of this. If we did get this number, which like we've talked about, we're just waiting for this number. I know Chad, you can maybe touch on this a little more.
Well, we know Guzman Energy is a leader in this industry. You know, they worked well with Kit Carson, Delta Montrose. They just bought out here this last summer. We know there's current other cooperatives talking to them. So we know that they have a trusted and a good reputation, and we needed someone that we could rely on for some answers and some expertise.
Chad, you can keep talking. The next question's for you. Are there benefits from DGC to Dakota, and how do the Dakota losses impact individual member owners?
Well, Basin says there are benefits, but again, at the end of the day, by the year 2029, they're going to be at over $1 billion of losses. So, you know, Lee talked about the discovery stage, and that's what we'll get into. You know, we'll start to find out what that information is. You know, what is the benefits of DGC? You know, what are these the real losses, or maybe they could even be more? And as far as the, say, the monthly effects to Dakota Energy, I guess we would have to look at their monthly financial statements. I know right now I've looked on Basin's website, and I don't think you guys have on the December 2020 financials, and I'm not sure February's on there either. So that's something we can dig into. We can start to put some information out there when we start to get it from Basin. So.
All right, Chad, we'll keep you talking with this one. All the money that East River is spending on this fight is partially Dakota Energy money too. Why don't they just give a buyout number and let things proceed and let the DEC board if they want to proceed?
That is probably the best question all night.
Should be asking East River.
Yeah. Just give us a fair, equitable exit fee number. That's all we ask. It's that simple. Everything else you guys see in the papers, the Facebook ads, you know, Todd talked about this a little bit too. People creating websites. Smoke and mirrors. Let's focus on our membership. Because if you truly want to keep a cooperative family together, you work together, you communicate, you get that information out. If you have issues like DGC out there, let the whole membership know. Because it's important, because those are dollars you're never going to get back. They're gone forever.
We have a lot of other good questions where that came from, Chad, I promise you. Where were Basin and East River Electric asked to participate in the town hall tonight?
They are members. They're actually sitting right there, center stage. There's Andy there, and Bob Saar is sitting right next to him. Is Kit
Carson in the SPP? If not, What would have happened to their power supply prices if they had been in the SPP and received their power, which is fully exposed to market pricing swings without the hedge of generation through Guzman?
So Kit Carson is not in the SPP. In fact, in the Rocky Mountains where Kit Carson is in New Mexico, there's not an organized market. We get our power from Guzman. It's transmitted through Public Service of New Mexico's lines, which it has been for the last 50 years. And it's then transmitted over Tri-State's G&Ts. And we have tariffs with them. We have transmission rates with them. So again, if we had an issue with that, and we did, our rates didn't go up. And we have contracts that insulate us from that. As it's been mentioned, there's reliability standards. Guzman met those standards, and we did not have an outage. So again, we receive power the same way today that we did when I started in '84, that we did in probably the 60s when all these transmission lines were built. The only thing that's really changed is the ownership from Plains to Tri-State. To give Tri-State some credit on the transmission, they maintain them, they upgrade them when they're supposed to, they're out servicing them, and they have some legal obligations to keep their lines maintained. Because of this outage in Texas that affected New Mexico, the PUC and Kit Carson's regulated, so we have to address these same questions to our regulators. Kit Carson was one of the few co-ops in the state of New Mexico that was not impacted financially by this transaction. So again, this reliability issue is really a misdirection and really misstated. It doesn't matter who owns the lines; they have an obligation, legal obligation, to maintain a reliable system.
Perfect. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to say thank you to everyone who is submitting questions. There are a number of questions coming in. We're going to try and get through all of them tonight, but we'll prioritize everyone's first question that was asked, just so you kind of know the order of the next couple of questions. We want to get to everyone, but that's how we'll prioritize things. The next question's for you, Chad. What will it cost to buy the transmission lines from East River, or what would rental cost?
Oh, that's something that, when we get that fair, equitable exit number, we'll sit down with East River and see what transmission services they want to sell, or what the wheeling fees are. Because currently, right now, we're already paying for those transmission services. They're built into our rate. So it'd be no different. It's just getting a different line item on there. And if you really think about it, Dakota Energy's been around for a long time. We merged back in '95, but before that, as members, you guys were still paying for those services. So technically, you already own them. They've already been depreciated out. So, really, they're Dakota Energy's power lines.
You mentioned you asked for a buyout in 2018. When did you first let the members know of your idea to find other power? This one goes to you, Chad.
I believe it was around April 2019. We did invite Kit Carson. We wanted to let the membership know during that time. We put that on Facebook because that seems like to be the hot topic where we can get information out very quickly. So I did take a picture with Guzman, and appreciate them coming in during that time. So.
All right, the next one's also for you, Chad. Has a bottom line number been established where Dakota Energy will or will not leave East River?
No. There's numbers all over the board.
Chad, another one for you. Why did the board wait so long to tell members they were working on this?
Again, I don't think the membership elects these directors to look at things like this. We go through contracts monthly. And, this is probably more contentious because East River made it more contentious by putting out all the advertisement. Again, we're still only asking for a fair, equitable exit fee. Nothing else. There's nothing to vote on. And if the number comes back okay, that would be a board decision on what needs to happen.
All right, Chris, I have one for you. Where are the generation plants that Guzman Energy owns?
We serve load in Colorado and New Mexico right now, and so that's where the resources are. Colorado, the new resources we're contracting for are primarily in Colorado. We have other long-term contracts in New Mexico. We have some in Arizona, really all around the West. Combination of owned assets and long-term offtake, which is where you just buy the output of the plant without buying the actual plant itself.
We'll keep you talking, Chris. The next question is, East River is a G&T. Doesn't being a G&T cooperative mean that they generate their own energy?
My understanding is East River gets their energy from Basin Electric, does not own their own generation assets. You'd have to ask them if.
I can fill in a little bit on that. You know, they do own the transmission, they own the substations for the distribution co-ops. They do get a small allocation from WAPA, but the majority of the power comes through Basin.
And again, whether you own it or don't, you know, I don't even say that digging on East River. They know that is a perfectly acceptable way for it to work. It's how they've been doing it for a long time. And so you have to get away from this question of who owns it or doesn't own it. It's how you contract for the assets, how you get the energy and capacity. And again, we're all subject to the same standards. This is not, power supply is not an area where you go wing it. There is an extensive amount of federal, state regulations dictating how this all works.
If Dakota Energy leaves East River, will they issue RFPs or just negotiate with Guzman? Chad, this one's for you.
Again, we still have to have that fair exit number before any contracts or rates or anything can be discussed.
All right, Chad, another one for you. What happens to WAPA allocation should Dakota Energy leave East River?
Again, that would be under negotiation. So right now, you know, I showed that slide earlier about and Dakota Energy is not really growing at all. So those other distribution co-ops in East River's footprint, you know, we get around the Sioux Falls, Brookings area, Watertown, Mitchell, they're growing. So the more those cooperatives grow, that WAPA allocations get more and more diluted every day.
All right, has Dakota Energy done engineering studies, business plans, feasibility studies?
Again, we're just asking for a fair, equitable exit fee number. Until you get that number, there's no other studies to go off of. You know, there's been a lot of newspaper ads and stuff out there that are already at step 4 and 5 and maybe 6. We need to complete step 1 first.
All right, Chad, I have another question for you. With the multi-year contracts, is the price set on signing or negotiated every year?
You know, again, step 5 question when we're on step 1, but if we were to get that far, it would be a negotiation. I can tell you how we've done it in every other instance, which is the price is, so the first point I made earlier, our price is fixed. I have no ability, once we set the price, I have no ability to change it. In all of our contracts previously, I assume a prospective contract with Dakota would look similar, although that's subject to whatever we wanted to figure out. Prices are set for the entire contract term in advance at the time we sign the contract, and then that's it. So they'll know what their price for wholesale energy is 10 years from now, and I can't change it even if I wanted to. It is our job to deliver at that price if we want to make money. But even if we're not making money, I don't get to go back to him and say, hey, we're not making money, you have to pay me more. So generally, in fact, all of our existing contracts, I can't speak as to how this would go because we're not there yet. The prices are set in advance and cannot be changed. It's cold, doesn't matter what happened. We are entering into an agreement where we are telling them what their price is in the future. Another important part of that is right now, if you ask Chad what his wholesale price is going to be 10 years from now, he couldn't give you an answer because their existing relationship, they have the ability to change the price every year if they feel like it. There's a huge planning component to this. If they know what their energy cost is a % of their budget for 10 years and they know that can't change, imagine how much easier that makes it to be able to make decisions for how to run your co-op. And Luis has seen this firsthand over the last several years. So knowing what that price is and how it's set in advance and that it cannot be changed is a huge advantage.
All right, Chad, the next question is for you. If East River owns the power lines and infrastructure, can they charge at will to move power from another company through their lines?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, this was going to be regulated, but Louise could probably answer to that since they are dealing with Tri-State. And
So our dealings with both Public Service of New Mexico and Tri-State is they have to file tariffs at FERC, a rate case, and that's what they can charge, only what is approved by FERC. If they want to charge more, they have to go to FERC and ask permission. So the answer is they can't charge more, and there's some reciprocity, and they cannot discriminate against companies. So if they're charging company X 2 cents to move power, they have to charge company Y 2 cents to move power. So they can't move it. I want to make a quick comment on this exit fee because I do think that's the crux to it because we went through that. The exit fee is a keep whole number. So the idea of the exit fee for those in the audience is that whatever number they give Dakota keeps the power supplier whole, means that they're not going to lose any money, and it makes sure that the other co-ops don't subsidize that. That's why it seems to me so silly that they don't give that number because it doesn't hurt anybody, but it enables Dakota Energy to start at least making some decisions and analysis if this is the way they want to go. So, I think that's important because when we got our number, one of the basic things our board wanted was to make sure that Tri-State wasn't hurt in this, that they could keep operating because there's other co-ops that count on Tri-State. And second, we didn't want our neighboring co-ops to have to subsidize us. There is no reason for them not to give that number because then that gives them a basis to start and it gives the power supplier a basis to see what they need to do if they want to keep them. And so I just want to, that's really hasn't been talked about. No one really gets hurt in this transaction to get a number to the Dakota Energy Board so they could start making some decisions.
And Luis, you just used the acronym FERC. You want to just elaborate?
So
tons of
yeah, so FERC is a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's a federal kind of PRC that regulates transmission in the United States. And so if you are under their jurisdiction, you have to get your rates changed by them. And that's how most transmission in the country is operated. There are some G&Ts that are exempt to that and their boards operate that, but I don't believe that's the situation with East River or Basin.
All right, just a few more and then we'll wrap this up tonight. First one is for Chad. What does East River have to lose by providing Dakota Energy a fair exit fee?
What do they have to lose?
They have to lose.
I have no idea. I'm assuming that if they provide us with a fair, equitable exit fee number, there are going to be other cooperatives that want to know. Because there are other cooperatives that are asking. There's board of directors out there thinking, well, what would my exit fee be? So I think that's one of the reasons they're being reluctant on giving that to us. Even though, I think it was mentioned earlier, we own East River.
Chad, we'll keep you talking again. Have there been any other electrical suppliers wanting to help with getting a number from Basin Electric, or is Guzman the only one?
Guzman is the only one we've been in contact with.
When I made my presentation, we got about 15 responses So there are other power companies out there, power suppliers, that are willing to bid on this type of business. So I think they chose Guzman. From Kit Carson's perspective, it was the right choice for Kit Carson. But there is plenty of options for the Dakota Energy Board to look at if that, in fact, is the direction they go.
All right. Why isn't East River asking for a buyout number from Basin to help all of its co-op members? Chad, will and go to you.
Before that would probably be the best question tonight. But really, if you think about it, financially, East River is affected by what Basin does. So technically, if East River really cared about every one of its member systems, they should be pursuing something like this too. And if I guess I was at East River, I would want to know what my buyout number is from Basin. Because we just heard earlier, the G&T down in Texas, who was a A-rated company, just filed for bankruptcy. Basin is an A-rated company, G&T, Super G&T. This could potentially happen to them. And for them to say that this is impossible, I would really guess that question. So if I was East River, I would definitely be asking what my buyout number would be. And along those lines, there should be more distribution cooperatives in the East River system that should be asking too. Do your due diligence, do your fiduciary duty for your members. Because East River works for us.
All right, this is going to be the last question for the night, and we got this question several times, but Chad, I want you to answer this one. What can we do as members to help?
Well, we'll go over that here on one of the last slides here. But I know this is a touchy subject. It's very confusing. We use tons of acronyms. The system is so big. I mean, it's a nationwide integrated system. So my door is always open. My phone is always available. So I've talked to a number of you. You've either come in, you've called, you've talked to our employees. And I challenge you to go up to them because they're knowledgeable enough to explain, hey, we're looking for a fair, equitable exit fee number. That's it. So come in, talk to me, please. If you have any questions, you see a Facebook post out there, you see another full-page ad in the Plainsman, come and talk to me. Is it really true that we're going to lose power because if we went with Guzman? Absolutely not.
All right. We truly appreciate all the questions that have been sent in tonight. We've already gone a little bit over time, so thank you again. We'll kind of turn it back over to, like Chad alluded to, the last couple of slides that we have here.
All right, well, we'll turn this over to Chase for the last remarks.
Such a great public speaker. They're letting me finish up, so. I want to thank everyone again for coming tonight. As we've talked, some of you have asked how you can help us. Bring up this slide. We are starting now tonight. There's going to be, we're going to launch an online petition. You can find it on Dakota Energy's website, and I'm sure we're going to put it on the Facebook page. I'm sure it'll be up there too. And then just sign that to show support, to tell East River that there is people behind us. We just want a number. That's all we're asking for. You can also write letters to the editor. Chad loves getting letters. We talk about it all the time. He loves getting letters in the office. If you need any information, if you do want to write a letter to the editor or just anything, call us, let us know. We can help you with all that information. And then anything you want to post online. I know online gets dirty and messy, but if you want to post a Facebook post or anything, we appreciate that and support. Finally, just help spread the word throughout the community. Tell our side of the story at your coffee shops, your restaurants, and the ball games. And then,
you know, stop in the office. If you guys want me to sit down with you, if you want some of our employees to sit down, if there's a group of you that have more questions or something, we can, with digital age now, we can do more Zooms. We have more questions for Chris or Luis. But again, we really appreciate each and every one of you for coming out here. And then we also appreciate everyone who was online. Thank you for the questions that were submitted tonight. Sarah, I don't know if we got through all of them, but if not, that's what I'll be doing tomorrow after our annual meeting. So again, thank you.